Sultans of Swing. It's universally considered as one of the greatest guitar solos ever recorded. But if we take a look under the hood, Mark Knopfler wasn't running the fretboard at lightning speed or using complex scales. Instead, he's doing something brilliant, tracking the chord changes using basic 3-note triads with a little twist. It's something every one of you watching already has the ability to do. The magic isn't in impossible technique, it's in a simple melodic concept. 3 key notes at a time that make every lick sound like it fits perfectly. Once you understand it, you're going to start hearing it in the playing of almost every great guitarist. Today, I'm going to show you how to use those same ideas in your own solos. So grab your guitar, let's get into it. Go back to 1978, Eddie Van Halen had just rewritten the rulebook with Eruption and pretty much every song on their first record. Suddenly, everyone was chasing speed, tapping, and jaw-dropping techniques. Then Mark Knopfler broke through with Sultans of Swing and proved to everybody there's another path. I was just a kid, but I remember the adult players at the music store where I took lessons sitting around and trying to learn it. And they were almost baffled because it was so different and unique. That's why guitarists are still studying that solo 50 years later. Let's take a look at the rhythm part and the fills between the vocals that Mark plays first, because that's really going to help you see the concepts that you need to know. Sultans of Swing is in D minor, and the chord progression of the verse goes D minor, C, B flat, and A. And then it repeats, but after that A chord, it shifts. It goes to F, C, B flat, and then back to D minor. Now here's the first gold nugget I want you to grab. Did you notice how the voicings he used for the C and B flat chords the second time around sound different than earlier in the verse? Here's the one he used first in the verse. Here's a C chord. Here's the second one. Same thing with B flat. He's using what we call different inversions of those triad chords. All that means is that it's the exact same notes, but we've rearranged the physical order of them on the fretboard so they have a different flavor. Inversions are also what makes the fills that he plays possible. Stuff like this. Or so before we go any further, let's take a look at different inversions on the different string sets, and I promise you, it's one of the absolute best things you can learn if you want to have real freedom moving around the fretboard. And then stick around because we are going to break down the licks in the solo, and I know you want to learn that. Simple music theory here. Triads are made up of a root note, a third interval above the root, and another note, a fifth interval above that root. So let's have a look at the F major scale on the D string. F major, it's the relative major of D minor. And we can choose any one of those notes as our root note and build a triad off of it. For instance, we could start on F. Go to the third note from F, which is A, and then go to the fifth note from F, which is C. And the notes F, A, and C make up the F major triad. Notice that the third interval, or A, is 4 frets above that F or the root note. 4 frets is 2 whole steps, and we call that a major third. It gives us a major triad. But what if we start, for instance, on the D note? With D as the root, the third note we come to is F, and the fifth note we'd come to is A. But F, it's only 3 frets, or what we call a minor third above F. And you guessed it, the minor third, it gives us a minor triad. Now, there are 2 other types of triads, but they're not necessary to play Sultans of Swing, so we're not going to devote any time to those today. And once we've discovered the notes that make up different triads, our next job is finding triad shapes that we can use around the neck. So let's go to the 5th position. We're going to find the notes D, F, and A on the G, B, and E strings at frets 7, 6, and 5. That's what we call a root form of the D minor triad because we start on the D note and we play the root, the third, and the fifth. Now, if we move up to the 10th position, we find the notes F, A, and D on those same strings, all at the 10th fret. The same three notes, but we flip the order around. Now F, or the minor third, it's our starting note. And we call that a first inversion D minor triad. Next, if we go to the 13th position, we're going to find A, D, and F on those same three strings at frets 14, 15, and 13. But now A, or the fifth, is the note we start on, and we call that a second inversion triad. And now that we know these three shapes, we can use them to play the D minor triad up and down the length of the neck. And this is going to work for major triads too. Now here's the root form of F major at the 8th position with F, A, and C. Here's the first inversion in the 13th position with A, C, and F. And then here's the second inversion all the way up at the 17th position with C, F, and A. And let's take F major triads all the way up the neck. And here's one of the great things about the guitar. To move these to different keys, all we have to do is move the shapes up and down until we find the root note we're looking for. And of course, there are other triad shapes we can use, but I'm trying to give you a working knowledge so we can move on to some cool guitar licks. Needless to say, you're going to need to transfer these shapes to other string sets. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to put up diagrams as I walk through these on the screen, so don't worry about memorizing them right away. On the E, A, D, and A, D, G string sets, D minor would look like this in its different inversion. Here's the root form of D minor with D, F, and A. Here's the first inversion with F, A, and D. Then here's the second inversion with A, D, and F. As I mentioned, those shapes hold on the A, D, and G string sets. Here's the D minor root form. Here's the first inversion. And here's the second inversion. Now, if we convert those to major by raising the third one fret, we'd have this for our D major root form. Here's our first inversion. And here's our second inversion. Just an FYI, that first inversion shape is a big one for these types of Hendrixy licks. And Mark uses it that way in Sultans of Swing. Going to the D, G, and B string set, here's the root form of D minor. First inversion, second inversion. Switch it to major, we'd have these three shapes. Root form, first inversion, second inversion. Remember, your shapes are always going to change when you get that B string involved because of the way it's tuned. You really need to get these triad shapes down cold. It's going to make everything else you do on guitar so much easier. And if you need more help learning your triad shapes, it's something I go over extensively in my course, The Lead Guitar Roadmap. Triads are just one of the subjects that we do a deep dive on, and I also show you how to put all that stuff together and actually use it. There's a link in the description below if you want to check it out, and of course I always appreciate your support. So now that we've got some shapes to use, I promise you that we break the solo down and I'd show you how to turn triads into great guitar licks. And we don't have to go any further than the second lick of the solo because Mark plays a solo that encompasses everything I want you to learn in this lesson. As we said earlier, the chord progression goes D minor, C, B flat, and A, And as the song is sitting on that A, about to go back to D minor, Mark plays a 6-string A major triad shape that goes from E on the low E string to E on the 12th fret of the high E string. Now the progression moves back to D minor, and after blurring the lines of major and minor by bending E up to F sharp, Mark walks right back down the D minor triad with the notes D, A, F, and D again. Now this is the second gold nugget I want you to pick up. He took 2 triad shapes that in and of themselves, they're just shapes and they can be really boring. But he turned them into what I call triad-based licks by adding that bend up to F sharp, and then he releases it down to E before playing the D minor triad. And all it takes to turn a triad into a complete musical statement is adding 1 or maybe 2 extra notes and a little bit of phrasing. Now, the chords repeat and he plays some single note things that aren't triad based, but when the chord changes to F and C, over these 2 chords he plays 2 awesome triad based licks. Over the F chord, he plays what we commonly refer to as a pedal steel lick, because we make some bends that sound like what pedal steel players do. But look what the notes are. He bends G up to A and then plays C and F. So this is a first inversion F major triad made to sound cooler with that bend on the G string. He then releases the bend to G and finishes the lick on another F note. And then over the C chords, he adds an F note on top of a C major triad, which gives it the sound of a suspended 4th chord. And then he also throws A, or the 6th, in to draw the harmony out a little more before he hits E on the D string and skips over to the C note on the B string. That's another example of turning plain vanilla triads into great sounding licks with 1 or 2 extra notes and some phrasing. Now the next chord is B flat, and the chord after that is D minor. Over B flat, he again turns a triad into a pedal steel lick, this time bending C up to D and playing F on the high E. And then he's going to release the bend to play C and B flat. So that's a B flat triad with the 2nd added for a little more melody. And then over D minor, he plays this bluesy phrase. But when we break that down, we've got the notes A, F, so there's our D minor triad, and then C bent up to a D, and then G bent up to A, and the G note, which is again our 4th interval, and we end on F. So he turned the D minor triad with a 4th interval added into, once again, a killer blues lick. The next chord is B flat, and he uses just a straight B flat triad. Followed by C, where he uses a C major triad on the D, G, and B strings. But he throws in F of the 4th and climbs up to G. He also does a cool rake on that triad where you really only hear the top note. And of course, he does it finger style, which makes it even cooler. I hope you're starting to recognize what he's doing to build those triad-based licks. It's nothing more than adding an extra note to a triad to create a little more melodic flow, and then some phrasing to make the lick sound more alive and emotional. Here's how I want you to practice this concept, and we're going to go inversion by inversion and create some licks. We'd start with the root form of D minor at the 10th position on the D, G, and B strings, and we can play D, F, and A, or the 1, the minor 3rd, and the 5th, and then the flat 7, or C, and bend that up to D. We can release that bend back down to the minor 7th, and play the 6th, or B flat, and then end up back on the 5th. Nice. How about we go to the first inversion at the 13th position. We're going to play F, A, D before sliding into E, or the second we're going to bend that up to the minor 3rd. And then we can resolve down to the root or D to finish that one off. Lastly, let's go up to the second inversion at the 18th fret area. We've got A, D, and F, or the 5th, the root, and the minor 3rd, and then we can play G or the 4th and bend that into A before descending back down to the F or the minor 3rd. That's another great one. Here's a major idea that Mark used where he added the 4th to a major triad to get sort of a suspended 4th sound with F, E, C, and G over the C major chord. And you can go around the fretboard and go inversion by inversion and work through adding that F note to the C major triad. Here's a great way to turn triad inversions into guitar licks, and Mark does this a lot in the fills he plays between the vocal lines. Since we're using 3-string triad shapes, we're just going to play the notes on the 1st and 3rd strings and then move around the inversion. For instance, we've got A major on the G, B, and E strings. We've got our first inversion, second inversion, and our root form. And then D minor, we've got our first inversion, second inversion, and then root form. And we can play this over those two chords. So we just used all 3 inversions of A major and D minor, did a little string skipping, and came up with a great sounding passage. It's super simple, but it sounds wonderful. Now, I know there's a crazy amount of triad videos on YouTube, and I've done a bunch myself. But I hope instead of just another, hey, memorize these shapes video, that I've given you some ideas of how one of the all-time greats created a melodic masterpiece of a solo using triads. Triads make it easy to nail the chord changes because they are the notes of the chords. And as you just learned, you can use them to create complete melodic statements by adding a note or two and some phrasing elements. Inversions, well, they make it a breeze to navigate around the fretboard. And when you start getting to the point where you can start to move your triads around the fretboard and weave in and out of more scale-based ideas, well, then you're going to start playing some serious lead guitar. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I do this every week. Have fun, work hard. See you in the next lesson.